During the meeting, you told attorneys that it is their job to implement the president's agenda and that they have to follow orders from the president and that there's no room for dissent in the chain of command. Paul.
I do hope, Senator, that at some point I'll have an opportunity.
You were trying to find two attorneys to sign a motion to more evidence is going to come out that showed that you lied before this committee.
Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, where we stand up for freedom, the Constitution, and common sense. If you love America and you're tired of the swamp, you're in the right place. Smash that like button, subscribe, and let's dive into today's topic. So I just watched this Senate committee grilling, absolutely grilling, a DOJ nominee, Mr. Bove, and let me tell you, it was something else. The left is out here parading around so-called concerns about this nominee's character, his actions, his record. But when you listen a little closer, it starts to sound a lot less like justice and a lot more like one giant political hit job. Let's break it down together because I know most of the mainstream media isn't going to give you the whole story.
In 2018, Mr. Bove, a group of federal criminal defense attorneys and former SDNY prosecutors in Manhattan were so alarmed by your pattern of unethical conduct that they wrote your supervisors at SDNY to warn them about you. I'd like to enter into the record a letter that I sent to Acting U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton of SDNY requesting more information about any internal or external complaints about you as a prosecutor. The letter contains the full text of that 2018 email from lawyers in which they describe you, and I'm quoting here, they describe you as, quote, vindictive, always looking for leverage and power, a prosecutor version of a drunk driver, completely reckless and out of control, quote, needing adult supervision. One attorney said that you, whatever due justice is supposed to mean, it doesn't apply to Bove. A former federal prosecutor who later litigated against you said what Mr. Bove enjoyed most as a prosecutor was wielding power, a quality they described as the single worst possible trait for a public servant. Now, I read these because they're important that these complaints are not an attempt to derail your nomination. This is from 2018, person after person. These complaints come from attorneys who practiced in federal court, some former federal prosecutors, warning a U.S. attorney's office that one of their prosecutors was, quote, a real recurring problem, and that you were not representing the office in a way that they thought the office would want it represented. Your conduct was so beyond the pale back in 2018 that they wrote your supervisors to say you were a liability for the office. I think this is important because it shows a pattern of behavior. The allegations align with reports about your abuse of power now at the DOJ. I want to follow up in this pattern with what Senator Durbin's questions about the mandatory teams meeting you scheduled for all remaining public integrity section attorneys on February 14th, 2025. We already know that you're refusing to tell this committee whether you talked to Stephen Miller or others at the White House. All the chiefs and supervisors had resigned at this point, so all of the remaining and available attorneys were line attorneys in that meeting. Is that correct? Approximately 20 attorneys were on the team's call.
I do hope, Senator, that at some point I'll have an opportunity.
You were trying to find two attorneys to sign a motion to dismiss the Adams case without prejudice. Is that correct?
Yes.
During the meeting, you told attorneys that it is their job to implement the president's agenda and that they have to follow orders from the president and that there's no room for dissent in the chain of command. Is that correct?
No.
You told them that they had 1 hour to find two attorneys to sign the motion. They weren't allowed to ask questions. Is that correct?
No.
You started the meeting by emphasizing to the line attorneys that Danielle Sasson and Hagan Scott had failed to follow orders and that Ms. Sasson was going to be reassigned before she resigned, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the last part of that question.
I will state again. You started the meeting by emphasizing to the line attorneys that Danielle Sasson and Hagan Scott had failed to follow orders and that Ms. Sasson was going to be reassigned before she resigned. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. You also told them that whoever signed the motion would, quote, emerge as the new leaders, end quote, of the public integrity section for doing so, correct?
I don't recall saying that.
So you don't know if you said that or not?
I don't recall saying that.
Edward Sullivan volunteered to sign the motion. As promised, Sullivan was promoted to acting chief of the public integrity section for dismissing that case. Is that correct?
No.
So you are saying that as the leader of the DOJ, you don't know who is in charge of public integrity?
No, I'm saying that the causal relationship that you implied in your question is not accurate.
Okay. We have you on the record on all of those points. You worked on January 6th cases while a prosecutor at the SDNY, correct?
A supervisor, yes.
An FBI agent described you as treating the January 6th cases as a priority when you were prosecuting those cases. But then you fired dozens of prosecutors and 8 senior FBI officials working on the case. Is that correct?
No.
So, Mr. Bove, I am hoping that more evidence is going to come out that showed that you lied before this committee. And I'm wondering where the lines are for you. What's the line in the sand when you wield awesome power of government? What is that line for you? Because clearly lying to a court isn't a red line. Referring to refusing to follow court orders isn't a line. Doxing judges and government officials isn't a red line. Intimidating attorneys you supervise into doing things they believe is unethical is not a line. So what's your red line? I really wonder. What could the president ask you to do that you wouldn't do? What wouldn't you do to win? A judge has to uphold core values and principles: independence, impartiality, integrity, diligence. A judge must be free from undue influence. A judge must decide cases fairly without prejudice or favor. A judge must ensure that anyone who appears before them in court will get a fair shake.
Thank you, Mr.
Everything
Booker.
we're hearing you say makes me believe that you're incapable of that. The pattern didn't just begin when you were nominated by this president. Peers of yours, prosecutors, attorneys who served with you, and judges in your past year have again and again cited you as someone who is not capable or qualified of doing this job in which you're nominated for. Thank you,
Ms.
Madam
Britt.
Chair.
First, the senator brings up some letter from 2018 written by a group of federal criminal defense attorneys and some former SDNY prosecutors. They called Mr. Bove vindictive, reckless, said he needs adult supervision, all kinds of personal insults. But think about this for a second. Defense attorneys and ex-prosecutors complaining about a tough prosecutor? That's not exactly shocking. When you're doing the hard work of holding criminals accountable, the people on the other side, especially the defense bar, aren't going to send you Christmas cards. They're going to try to undermine you. That's the nature of the adversarial system. It's their job to protect their clients, sometimes at any cost. And let's not forget, this letter wasn't some official government finding. It's just a bunch of opinions from people who might have a bone to pick. Yet the senator reads it out like it's gospel. This is classic Washington, D.C. Try to assassinate someone's character before they even have a chance to respond. Then the senator claims there's a pattern of concerning behavior, that this guy enjoyed wielding power. Let me just say, a prosecutor who takes the job seriously, who isn't afraid to use the authority that comes with the office, is exactly the kind of person we want at the DOJ. We don't need more weak-kneed bureaucrats who are afraid of their own shadow. We need someone who'll enforce the law, period. The left always wants to demonize strong leadership, unless it's one of their own. Now, the big controversy. This team's meeting on February 14th, 2025. The senator says Mr. Bove pressured line attorneys to sign off on dismissing a case, told them to find 2 volunteers in an hour, no questions allowed. That he emphasized following the president's agenda and no room for dissent. That he threatened to reassign someone for not following orders. Let's be honest, folks. The DOJ is part of the executive branch. That means it implements the president's policies within the law. That's how the system works, whether you like the president or not. And when you're a supervisor, sometimes you have to get things done. The left makes it sound sinister, but if this were an Obama or Biden DOJ nominee pushing for progressive policies, they'd call it leadership and decisive action. Were there tough conversations? Maybe. But if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. The left wants prosecutors who are compliant with their agenda, not someone who will actually enforce the law. Then they allege that Mr. Bove promised promotions to anyone who'd signed the dismissal motion, and that he fired prosecutors and FBI officials working on January 6 cases. He denied or didn't recall most of it. Here's my take. The left loves to claim they're the party of democracy and norms, but when someone pushes back against their narrative, suddenly it's abuse of power. The double standard is mind-blowing. They're not upset about abuse. They're upset that someone might not play ball with their agenda. And as for January 6th, they'll use that day as a political cudgel forever. We all want accountability for lawbreakers, but the way the left weaponizes the DOJ to go after their opponents is what's truly dangerous. Finally, the senator asks, "What's your red line? What wouldn't you do to win?" As if Mr. Bove is some kind of monster who'd do anything for power. But let me ask you, Senator, what's your red line? Is it okay to destroy someone's reputation based on hearsay? Is it okay to undermine the American principle of innocent until proven guilty, just because you don't like the nominee's politics? Our founding fathers believed in due process, in fair hearings, and the presumption of innocence. The left's approach is guilty until proven innocent, if you disagree with them. Here's what matters. The American people deserve prosecutors and judges who enforce the law, not the political whims of the day. They deserve public servants who aren't afraid to make tough decisions, even when it's unpopular. Mr. Bove might not be perfect. No one is. But the way he's being railroaded in this hearing is a disgrace. It's a political witch hunt, plain and simple. If we don't push back against this kind of character assassination, we'll end up with a justice system that answers only to the loudest activists, not the Constitution. That's my take, folks. We need more backbone in Washington, not less. Stand up for the rule of law, stand up for due process, and don't let the left destroy good people just because they do their job. If you agree, hit that like button, share this video, and let me know what your red line is in the comments. God bless you. God bless our Constitution, and God bless the United States of America.